Nike here, bringing you the guide for our raid-tested Engineer build. Engineer is a great profession for raids. They have pretty great DPS and tons of awesome utility. Just the ability to have a class that brings good DPS, along with a water field and blasts as well, and a lot of CC on top of that, means that you have a character that can be fit into nearly any team comp without much issue. Our Engineer raid build is a condition damage build, and if you watched my Dungeon and Fractal guide, most of this will be familiar. If you haven't, the main benefit of condition damage Engineer in raids over Berserker is a higher sustained DPS, especially in longer battles. It's my opinion that the condition damage NG rotation is easier to pull off closer to the ideal and the optimal than the Berserker rotation is. So the fact that the condition damage Engineer is about 15% better DPS in ideal circumstances means that it will likely be even greater in practice. And as the Berserker, NG offers no real support advantage since they share most of the same skills, it's really a no-brainer to recommend the condition damage NG as the main DPS Engineer build for raids. As far as tank builds go, my guildmate Narc will be doing the Engineer Scrapper tank build, so look out for his video. But before getting into anything else, let's move along to the gear for the Condi NG. Alright, so the gear I recommend is armor and weapons with Viper stats and Rune of the Berserker. For trinkets, I recommend getting the Viper's Amulet that is obtainable in HOT Story Mode. As well, and that will allow you, with Viper's armor and weapons and the Mordrum loop, it'll allow you to get to, as you can see, 99 with food, 99.4% burning and bleeding, which is about as good as it gets. For the back piece, I recommend taking a Rampager's back piece. If you don't have a Rampager's back piece, you can either use Celestial or Rabid. Rabid and Celestial, or Rabid specifically, would be a slight DPS increase over Rampagers, however. But you gotta remember that it does have a lot of extra toughness, and toughness can be counterproductive in fights where boss aggro is largely determined by toughness, which you see a lot in raids. The earrings and rings should be sinister stats. For our pistols, I recommend Sigil of Geomancy and Sigil of Malice. These are your highest DPS sigil options. However, if you do not have Berserker runes, the alternative option is to use 5 runes of the Nightmare and 1 Black Diamond. And if you do use the 5 Nightmare, 1 Black Diamond option, feel free, and please do, since you'll go over the handicap, swap your Sigil of Malice out for Sigil of Earth. So again, if you're using the Berserker runes, you can use Sigil of Malice on your pistol. If you're using 5 Nightmare, 1 Black Diamond, swap the Sigil of Malice for Sigil of Earth. So that's it for gear, pretty straightforward. Not much has changed from the dungeon guide, except for the fact that I am definitely recommending the Mordrum loop if you have obtained it. So moving on to traits. Again, not much has changed in the trait department from the Dungeon Fractal build. In explosives, we take Glass Cannon, Short Fuse, and Shrapnel. These are all fairly obvious traits that are meant to increase our condition damage and a little bit of our direct damage. In firearms, we're going to take Chemical Rounds, Pinpoint Distribution, and Incendiary Powder. These are going to also be pretty big condition damage increases for us. Worth remembering that Chemical Rounds does ignore the condition damage cap because it doesn't add condition damage onto your skills. It actually modifies the skills themselves to have additional duration. So you will get 150% burn duration when fully capped out on your Blowtorch. In tools, we're going to take Reactive Lenses, Streamline Kits, and Adrenal Implant. I would suggest, if you have a way to get Perma Swiftness from somewhere else, to switch to Takedown Round. However, there are times in raids, especially as we saw with the Veil Guardian fight, where the extra swiftness from Streamline Kits is very important. I also find the swiftness from Streamline Kits to be very good at Gorseval. And any fight where there's ad spawns that you need to clump together, I actually find the magnetic bomb to be quite useful, and I've used it to great effect there. So Streamline Kits, not strict in raids, it's not strictly a quality of life improvement. It actually will facilitate easier clears of the content. So that's it for traits. Moving on to consumables. The optimal food choice is koi cakes or rare veggie pizza. They're one and the same. They just have different durations and different costs. And toxic focusing crystals. Again, this food is not cheap, but it is incredibly powerful. In my Dungeon and Fractal guide, I will normally recommend a cheaper alternative for players who cannot afford best in slot food. However, this is a raid guide, and I operate under the assumption that people are not slackers and will bring the absolute best they can in order to not be the weak link for their team. So do whatever you have to do, spend the gold, get the best in slot food, and don't be a slacker. Additionally, did want to mention one other food, prickly pear pies. These do 20% condition duration, just like koi cakes, but instead of giving you bonus condition damage, they give you lifesteal on crit. This can be very, very powerful in fights that are high pressure, especially if your group is trying to go without a healer or using a healer who's a little bit more offensive spec, like a berserker druid or something like that. In cases like that, you're not going to get the same amount of heals as you would from a dedicated healer. So it is worth considering that this is a quote-unquote best-in-slot food for a Condi damage build. And if you need the lifesteal to handle the pressure of the fight, I would highly recommend bringing prickly pear pies for such an occasion. All right, moving on to skills. All right, generally speaking, our standard loadout is healing turret, grenade kit, bomb kit, flamethrower, and mortar kit. It's important to realize that the mortar kit is much better in raids than it is in normal dungeons. One thing to consider with the mortar kit is that it does have blinds, which is good for trash mobs. And it also has some heals if needed, which is also good, and a water field, quite strong. And that it has chill, a very nice chill field, actually. So it does come with some serious amount of soft CC. As you guys will experience in raids, soft CC is a very powerful thing and very useful, especially in the Gorseval fight. You will want to make sure you have all the soft CC that you can bring with you. And the Engineer is quite capable of doing that using Mortar Kit, Bomb Kit, and Pistol. So that is generally how it goes and why I would definitely recommend the Mortar Kit as your elite over other options. As far as the DPS rotation goes, for Engineer it hinges around the concept of using your best skills on cooldown. Well, your best skills are Napalm, Blowtorch, Firebomb, Shrapnel Grenade, and then Poison Dart Volley and Static Shot. When those skills are on cooldown, your best quote-unquote auto attack option is just your standard grenade. Basically, as I explained in my dungeon guide, memorizing your cooldowns is a little tricky, especially on Engineer if you're new to the class and you don't have it kind of muscle memoried. I find the best way to deal with the cooldowns for Engineer, especially Condi Engineer, is using your Shrapnel Grenade as a clock. Since you do spend most of your time in Grenade Kit, you can sort of use the cooldown for Shrapnel Grenade to let you know when your other skills are off cooldown. For example, Shrapnel Grenade has a 5-second cooldown. Blowtorch has a 15-second cooldown. So, if after you Blowtorch, you go back to Grenade Kit and drop your Shrapnel Grenade, you know that after your third shrapnel grenade, you'll be able to go back to blowtorch, and it would be up again. The same holds true for firebomb. It has an 8-second cooldown, so you can be generally sure that after every 2 shrapnel grenades, that you'll be able to go back to grenade kit, and your firebomb will be up. So you can kind of use, as I said, shrapnel grenade as your clock for the cooldowns of skills that aren't visible. And you can kind of count every time you use a shrapnel grenade, 1, 2, 3, and then when you do the third one, blow torch it away. After every second one, you can firebomb. And this way, you'll ensure that you use your money skills whenever possible. Also worth mentioning, you definitely want to use incendiary ammo anytime that it comes off cooldown, and grenade barrage is also good to work into your DPS rotation. A cool thing you can do with incendiary ammo, if you can time it well, is prior to a boss fight, you can activate it, and then right when you're about to go into the boss fight, if you can hit the boss when this has about 2 seconds of cooldown, what'll end up happening is that you'll get to use it, it'll proc, and then you can activate it again and do it again, and you'll get 4 stacks of burning, as opposed to just the 2. So there's some nifty things you can do like that to increase your DPS rotation, and increase just a little bit of extra damage squeezed out of it. So that is it for DPS rotations, and that is it actually overall for this entire guide. Not much has changed for the NG compared to the dungeon version of this build, so not much new to bring you. The only reason I reiterate it is because I felt that there's probably a lot of people who are probably going to be watching this video that didn't watch the dungeon video, and I don't want to have no video for the DPS NG for raids. And what I hope is that this didn't annoy you too much if you'd already seen the other video and were maybe expecting something radically different. And if you haven't seen the other video, I hope this helped you out. I hope you guys run this in raids, and I hope you have great success with it. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in my comment. I'll do the absolute best I can to answer them for you. Have a good one. Happy raiding.